I keep seeing these videos around the internet talking up the Nintendo 3DS, a console from 2011. That's 15 years ago. And yet last year, it's been gaining popularity extremely fast. I could only think of one question. Why? Sure, I really enjoyed gaming on my 3DS as a kid, but why is this thing so dang popular now with adults? To answer that question, I figured I'd take the dive myself and get a used one online. They must be dirt cheap with how old they are. Except these things are selling for $150 for a beat up original 3DS with some more limited edition ones going for upwards of $600. But maybe there's a way to experience the magic of the 3DS without actually having to go out there and buy one. And that's where this little guy comes in. Now, a couple of years ago, the Retroid Pocket 5, was all the rage. Everyone talked it up and lots of people bought it, myself included. And it's great, even though Retroid keeps cannibalizing their product over and over again. It's running hardware powerful enough to run games up to PS2 and GameCube, maybe even some light Switch emulation. Very light. But my mission is simple. Play 3DS games and see, why are these handhelds getting so popular again? Will I be missing out on the 3DS form factor? Will the games just not run well? But most importantly, what am I missing by not getting a real 3DS? So I rummaged through my Retroid Pocket 5 to see what was salvageable, only to realize I had no idea where anything was. The games, the apps, the saves, I had no clue. So at this point, a complete reset would probably be better than me retracing my steps from ages ago. Now though, I found a complete Retroid Pocket setup guide by Retro Game Core, which feels more like an extensive Wikipedia article, and I followed every single step. It was helpful, but involved. And despite having my hand held every step of the way, I still struggled. Dumb questions emerged like, where do I put the files? How do I get it to read my micro SD card? Usually when you think of retro gaming, you think putting in a game cartridge, turning it on, and just playing. But the reality isn't that simple. You've got the ROMs, which are the games themselves that you have to source either from ripping your old cartridges or from other means. But to play the ROMs, you need the emulator. It pretends to be the console, but each console has a different emulator, which means different UIs and settings. In my case, I really just want to play 3DS games, but the guide walked me through basically everything. So I downloaded this thing called RetroArch, which is a super common emulator or front end for retro games. It's such an intense program that Retro Game Core has another 8-page Wikipedia article about it too. Inside it, you have to download cores, which are like the more specific emulators for each console. For 3DS, I chose Azahar because he told me to. So RetroArch has a lot of stuff going on. I just wanted to play a game. Instead, I'm over here reading about configurations and saves, which looking back, I probably should have studied like my life depended on it. Honestly, if you want to do this, read the guide, follow the guide, but here's what I consider to be the most important. Number 1, save your configuration file or else you will reset to the same settings every single time you open the app. Set up autosave states and load states so you don't lose your saves. And 3, remap your hotkey for how to open up the menu, because you'll be using this a lot, especially during the setup phase. And 4, map a fast forward hotkey if you want to speed up gameplay. I didn't because I think that ruins the game for me personally. But the most tricky thing was that the B button and the A button were swapped while I was in the app, but when I was in the game, they switched. So confusing. I kept going back when I wanted to go forward. This is because Nintendo in particular programs their controls for the right button on an ABXY controller as A and the bottom button as B. Similarly, X and Y are swapped compared to an Xbox control layout, and after 2 hours of sighing and frustration, I was ready to play my very first DS game, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, one of my favorite games growing up. I just loved a good mystery, and I loved even more when I got to solve it. And after a couple hours of setup, I played my game. I loved it for a good 20 minutes before the unspeakable happened. It crashed. Yes, I set up autosave, I set up autoload, but when I turned it back on, there was nothing. Obviously, I could just go boot it back up and go again, but this was already going against my main goal, trying the whole thing out. Time. I just don't have nearly as much spare time as when I was younger. I want to game, but between work, my family, and everything else in my life, free time for gaming is a premium. Handheld gaming should be the fix to that, but that all goes out the window if I'm constantly crashing and losing saves. But you know what? I'm fine. everything's fine. This won't happen again, right? Because I had a plan. I would just save state more often and be fine. Well, the next day that was, because I'd run out of time. It's hard to find time to play video games, but luckily I'm able to claw back 30 minutes a day by harnessing the power of technology. Instead of coming home and speed running vacuuming my kitchen and doing a half job, I can let today's sponsor Roborock Revo Curve 2 Flow handle it for me. Not only does it vacuum though, it takes it a level even farther than I would have gone. It mops. No spill for my 2-year-old toddler is too much for it either. Every day it mops my entire kitchen, vacuums my carpet, and gives me that mental peace of coming home to a clean house. How does it do such amazing things, you may ask? With 20,000 pascals of suction, it has enough power to actually get cat hair out of carpet instead of gently pushing it around. And the mop is a self-cleaning roller with continuous fresh water and a built-in scraper that pushes the dirty water into a separate tank. So every pass is wiping with clean water, not that nasty slop you get from a typical robot mop. The Duo Divide main brush hits 0% hair tangling thanks to a dual roller design that splits and feeds hair straight into the vacuum instead of letting it wrap. Then the dock handles the rest. It washes the mop at 75 degrees Celsius, dries it with warm air, and auto empties the dust for up to 65 days at a time. With little maintenance and a fully clean house, it truly feels like I'm living in the future. When I was a kid, I imagined flying cars, but as an adult, a robot vacuum and mop is a true hero. Check out the Roborock Revo Curve 2 Flow at the link in the description below. So day 2, with a plan of action ready to go, I think we should probably address the biggest elephant in the room, the single screen for playing dual screen games. Thankfully, there are a bunch of ways you could square this circle. You could choose to have the 2 screens side by side, touch screen on one of them, or you can toggle the screen from top to bottom by using one of your triggers. When I tried this though, for some reason, the touch screen function stopped working. Now I have no idea why, but I still opted for the bigger screen anyways, because who doesn't want to see more stuff on your screen? And I just learned how to use the face buttons to do stuff instead. For games where I don't need to touch it, it's fine, like Ace Attorney and Pokemon, where you really can just use your controls. But for other games like Rhythm Heaven, the second screen is a necessity. Ultimately, the dual screen options are, let's say they're passable, but messing with them really did drive home how much I was missing out by not having a second screen. Maybe it was just the one game though. Maybe the more I played and the more I got used to everything, the better it'd be. So I played some more. Pokemon Sun. I've never played this game before, so it was super exciting. I'd only ever made it to Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, and wow, things have changed. The graphics are way better, and the gameplay feels easier, but alas, there were still more road bumps awaiting me. When I got to load a new area to explore, it just stuttered like crazy, which is weird, right? You would think that this seems like a pretty powerful handheld, but it struggled with emulating 3DS games. DS was buttery smooth, but even outside of Pokemon, some games, they don't even open. Emulation to me feels a bit like a gamble. Game crashes, save states corrupt, and you lose even more progress, and sometimes the games just flat out don't work. A lot more hassle than I feel like it should be. But I did some research on what this should emulate smoothly, and some people said 3DS was no problem. Even PS2 games was no problem. So why was I getting a ton of problems? Were my settings wrong? Well, the more I dug, the more I realized there was a much easier solution. The emulator itself. Like any console, there are a lot of different emulation cores or programs you can use to run your games. And the one I was using, well, it just wasn't cutting it. My current emulator, Azahar, is a core of RetroArch. And this is what the tutorial pointed me to, but maybe it's a bit out of date. So instead I searched online, and the most recommended option is called Lime 3DS. But that one merged with another emulator a while ago and now is also named Azahar. It's a bit confusing, but now I have a completely different app on my home screen. But the moment of truth, would this solve my woes, or was I just trying to fit a square peg in a round hole? I booted up Pokemon Sun, the game that was giving me the most troubles before, and now it's running super smooth. Pokemon Sun, X, even Animal Crossing, there's zero stutters now. Well, okay, some, but they're so minor compared to before. It wasn't just the performance that improved either. Remember the bad dual screen options from before? Now I can have the top screen being super big and the bottom one being tiny on the side, ready to be used when I needed it. Everything about it is just more streamlined than RetroArch. The saves are simple. I can access the menu with this button. I no longer have to remember hotkeys and go through a ton of settings. I just focused on playing it, not setting it up. This experience is 100 times better than before, and I'd imagine that this is what playing the real console is like. You plop in a game, you turn it on, you play it, you save, you turn it off. It's simple. It's straightforward. This was definitely the closest I got to experiencing that 3DS experience that everyone was raging about. But if I'm being honest, it still wasn't close enough. The form factor, the screen finagling, every time I went to play a game, I had a tiny voice that just said, I wish this was a 3DS. So you know what I did? I said, screw regrets. I'm a grown woman. I can spend some money on a 3DS. So I went to eBay looking for a good deal, and I found one for 120 bucks. It said the item would be in working condition with some scratches, some cosmetic problems, not too bad. It would be playable, they said. It took a few days to ship. Eventually, the day came. I grabbed the package outside the door. I took it in, and there it was. All of its turquoise glory. So pretty, so practical, so pocketable. And the clamshell means all the hardware is safely covered. It's perfect. Or so I thought, until I took it out of the bubble wrap and I flipped it open, or rather, attempted to. The screen wasn't even attached on its hinges, and it was sliding out of the other side. Some plastic piece fell out, and I don't even know what it was. Whoever said this was playable was clearly mistaken. It looks a bit intense to call it shipping damage. Perhaps I'd gotten scammed. In a rage, I quickly went back to eBay and asked to return it. He asked me for pictures. I sent them. The seller said it's shipping damage and offered me a full refund and even let me keep the broken 3DS. Technically, it does turn on. You just have to hold the hinge to stabilize it. But for some reason, it doesn't charge. He was real nice though. We got into a conversation about how he started repairing 3DSs and how it's been super popular since 2020. He even said I could repair it with a shell swap, but it's pretty hard for novices. So instead, I set out on a mini journey of just getting this thing fixed just enough to try it out. Unfortunately, we didn't have super glue laying around, but we might have had something better. This black material called Sugru. It's a moldable glue that turns into silicone rubber when it dries. It's pretty cool, but there was this note at the bottom of the page that says, Sugru doesn't bond with oily plastics. I looked at my 3DS. It looks oily. Is that oily? Some quick research says it's made of something called nylon GF55. How accurate that was? I have no idea. It's Reddit. I figured, what would it hurt to try? The thing was already broken, and I desperately wanted to fix it so I could experience the glory of a modded 3DS. So I molded the glue around the broken hinge. I went home for the day, praying it would stick. And the next day came. I ran into the office, and well, it didn't stick. Okay, so that didn't work. Maximum cope time. What if I just held it while trying to play? Yeah, it's not that bad. But even that was doomed. When I went to connect to my Wi-Fi, something was off. Pressing a letter didn't input that letter. Instead, it gave me a letter 2 rows down and slightly to the left, which is fine until I tried to press backspace. There were 0 places on the screen that let me backspace, which meant I could never get my Wi-Fi password correct. Future Betty here though, my 3DS proficient writer said it just needed calibrating. So I'm an idiot, but it still doesn't charge, so it's dead right now. Since then, I've gone back to using my Retro Pocket 5. At least with this, I have all the Android capabilities at my fingertips. It's a modern device, it's got more features. I've uncovered some really cool extra perks too, like I can run my Steam library with Game Native. That's right, you can run some Steam games on Android now. You know how much of a revelation that is? Now, I finally made it past year 1, day 1 in Stardew Valley. In fact, I'm probably on day 13 thanks to Game Native. I've tested out other games too, and they all work. It's not a 120 FPS like on PC, but it's portable. There's gotta be some give. So thank you to the founder of Game Native for letting me complete my forgotten Steam backlog one day at a time. And of course, in addition to the emulation and the Steam games, I also have the Google Play Store with games like Cassette Beasts and Balatro and a ton of others. So in the end, I do wish on some level I had a real working 3DS. But for those of us who just see videos and posts everywhere that say you need a 3DS in 2026, I don't think that's practical anymore compared to just getting a regular retro handheld or using your phone. There's just a lot of price and possible failure involved with getting a working 3DS in 2026 that people don't know about. Who knows though? I might give this thing a shell swap and try this again because it looks pretty dang cool. So I'll see you next time.